there and welcome to Capital View. Tidal wave, tsunami, earthquake, avalanche, all these words have been used to describe the stunning victory by the Aam Aadmi Party in the Delhi Assembly elections. What does this victory mean for Delhi? What does it mean for politics in the rest of India? To answer that question, a very eminent panel joining me: Dipankar Gupta, eminent sociologist; Surjit Bhalla, economist and author; Manisha Priyam, academic and researcher. Thanks everyone very much indeed for being here. Surjit, let me ask you to set it up. How do we interpret this victory? A defeat, a stunning defeat for the BJP and for Modi, or a big victory only for the Aam Aadmi Party?
Has to be a bit of both. So whether it is a stunning, I'm trying to think of the various adjectives on defeat to match your adjectives on the victory. But I think it's a big loss certainly for the BJP and a huge victory for the Aam Aadmi Party. We cannot take away from either of them as to what they have achieved and what they have lost.
There was a columnist who's written today, Delhi has enjoyed humiliating the BJP. Do you think there's something in that?
There is something in that, because what everybody has written, and it doesn't matter what part of the political spectrum you come from, is that over the last 6-8 months there has been, amongst members of the BJP, amongst the ministers, etc., a certain arrogance. And that never goes down well, especially with the media, but really it doesn't go well with anybody.
Dipankar, the Delhi voter is actually praising himself and herself quite a lot. People are congratulating each other and saying, "Kya kaam kiya, humne dikha diya." So there's something that the Delhi voter was perhaps trying to convey in this election. Was that this comeuppance it wanted to give, he or she wanted to give the central government?
That's there, of course. But I think alongside with the victory-defeat dichotomy we're talking about, I think those who stood by Kejriwal in the bad days of Kejriwal's, AAP's career, they must feel very good. They must feel really rewarded, because they were really a lonely crowd. Nobody was talking to them. The politicians were making fun of them routinely.
Even the Congress was making fun of them.
Even the Congress and journalists too. So large number of journalists. I can't think of any journalist really who stood by them. But this hardcore that stayed with him, precisely because Kejriwal went out on a limb, and he did that 49-day government, he did those 2 nights sleepover. This is what won that base for him. And they must feel very, very good about it. So they won. Because of them, Kejriwal won. But because of BJP's imperious ways, BJP lost and Kejriwal.
And Manisha, all these 9 months that the BJP's come to power, we've spoken about aspiration, we've spoken about the aspiring voter, the voters aspiring. Another word has now come into our lexicon, at least the lexicon of the media, a word which we had almost forgotten about, which is the poor. And concern for the poor, and the constituency and preference for the poor. It's almost as if politics needs a reset button, saying, hey guys, this is what it's supposed to be about in the first place.
The banking of politics with the poor in India, indeed something that I think Kejriwal told us that he's literally like the Muhammad Yunus for the politics sector in India. Even when he was lying low, the belief in him of the urban poor, very, very high. They singled out the fact that yes, he may have made mistakes while in power, but look at the fact that he stood for us. He's been that person who stopped the rent seeking of the police. So indeed, they begin to tell us to think about this city whose capital we are sitting in, about its urban periphery, about its margins, where questions of citizenship are being asked. If you ask for a glass of water, if you ask for your daily rights, for even using the toilet, even all of those could become issues with criminal intent. The police could be called in. So here was somebody they thought they could repose their political trust in, somebody who would handle the police with all the commitment at his command. And that's what ultimately really pays back. Even while he was down and out amongst the city's rich, amongst the city's thinking classes, it was here that he hibernated and made his political base.
Empathy versus subsidies. Do you think, is that something that he's doing? The sort of Janta Ka Neta, that ad where he's putting his arm around that, the elderly gentleman, which was everywhere. On the one hand you have Modi hugging Obama and Ambani, but you have Kejriwal hugging the poor man.
This idea that, it's the poor, suddenly we have discovered the poor or whatever, they were forgotten. Let me categorically state, I completely disagree with that interpretation of whether it is this election or whether that is what India needs. Now coming to the subsidies versus, look, we will wait and see as to what Kejriwal does on the giveaways, whether it is now. Tell me, Wi-Fi should be given free. Now, you know, one can argue that, listen, the aspiring people need Wi-Fi, but you know, so the aspiring people need also decent housing. They also perhaps need at least a scooter in order to get. So are we going to give all of?
So you don't see this as a vote coming from the urban poor?
We can give them TVs. So you know, we have to be very careful about this giveaways and this benefit Raj.
Let me just put your point though about the poor to Dipankar and ask him, do you think that Mr. Modi is losing this particular constituency or not? I mean, do you think that, as Manisha is arguing, that this is a constituency while Mr. Modi has his middle class and while he has the urban middle class base, perhaps this constituency of the poor he's losing? Or do you agree with Surjit and say that it's not as if the vote has been sliced that way and there is no constituency of urban poor particularly that has
Well, let
voted
me try and finish it a bit. And this will be in harmony with what I said earlier. That is, it is not as if only the poor voted for Kejriwal, nor is it that the rich deserted him. There's been a cross-section really. But I think what needs to be emphasized is, and this is where the dissonance amongst us will come in, that Kejriwal's 49 days, 2 nights sleepover actually endeared him to the poor who remained his mass base. That is something we should keep in mind.
Let me ask you to respond to Surjit, because he's responded directly to you saying, no, there is no urban poor constituency really that...
just be careful. There is an urban poor, but they did not vote differently than anybody else.
Right. It's not as if they particularly went to Arvind Kejriwal.
Okay.
But there's been a remarkable reinvention of the Arvind Kejriwal persona, and as Dipankar is pointing out, that does remain his base, although he did of course add on the big middle class vote as well.
Okay, so let me differentiate that. Surjit and I are not talking two different things. We are talking two different times. I am talking of the deliberation phase. I am talking of the hibernation and the deliberation phase. And Surjit is largely talking of the decision and the outcome moment. That's the, if somebody gets 67 seats, it's taken for granted that most parts of the city, a majority proportion of whatever classes we take, may have, or by and large have indeed voted for him. But here
that
again,
identification.
Number one, the identification. Number two, the changed character of the city. Why would he be really banking with the poor if he had not understood the face of the city, which today largely consists of the migrants? Every train that rolls into the New Delhi railway station, especially those that come from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, their third class compartments as I call it, bring in potential migrants. They are the people who are literally living at the edge and periphery of the city. It is they who begin to repose the trust in Kejriwal as the man who will not send us back.
When the poor or the low income groups repose their trust in someone, they think this is my party, I can vote for this party belongs to me, this man speaks for me. Is that a really important constituency that Mr. Modi is losing?
Let's pursue this a little bit with one of your earlier questions on subsidies and water subsidies. Remember that when Kejriwal, one of the big planks of the Kejriwal government, one of the big achievements, quote unquote, and the quote unquote is very important, was of providing free water to everybody. And now we're talking about, you know, the really poor who was his natural constituency, etc. Well, it turns out that about 15 to 20% of Delhi does not have any piped water.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
So now when you say, I'm going to give free water to everybody who has piped water like you and me, and these are the really poor who do not have piped water, why didn't he say, one of my first tasks will be to basically take the resources and get everybody a piped water supply. And you know who they are? They are the very poor.
No, but if there is someone who is speaking for these issues in a city where no one speaks for these issues, then surely that person will become a change agent and perceived as the Messiah.
Yeah, because nobody spoke against police bandobast.
That is why
nobody spoke against these things, which is why
the issues have to do with local governance. That is why when everybody points out about the police and a hafta, that is what touches, if you will, the bottom half of the population a lot more than the top half. They are really concerned about it. They have to survive it. And you add the police with the MCD, which includes the water, etc. You've got somebody that we really have to bring to task.
Is that a kind of then fundamental reset of politics that he's managed to do? We had forgotten about these issues. We hadn't covered these issues. We weren't looking at these issues of just how the livelihoods of the poor are criminalized, or just how much we suffer from the beat constable, or just how much we suffer these day-to-day issues. So, and the virtues of humility, you know, which are tired old cliches actually.
Kejriwal was able to listen to them in a manner in which no other political party was. These complaints were being made by them. But they had to walk up to a secretariat in New Delhi or to a neta in New Delhi.
Right.
Here was Kejriwal, who was reinverting the geography. He was walking in the peripheries, he was walking at the margins and telling people a lot of the reason why we thought that he was just being populist or he's talking too much about the poor was because we were not listening enough.
The fault actually was with us.
The problems of the poor.
Was with
and
us.
let me tell you this, Sagarika, that because he's heard the poor enough, he's perhaps unshackled within them the boundaries that existed of being this caste or that. Nothing else explains the fact that today, in lesser proportions, but even a Jat or a Gujar, as much as a Valmiki, as much as a Muslim, as much as a Purvanchali has voted for him.
I want to hark to another forgotten attribute, because it seems as if he's rejuvenated these forgotten words, you know, the poor and humility and all these things are we're suddenly talking about these when we had almost actually forgotten them. But, you know,
I think he says Janta more than poor. He says Janta more than poor, not
you know,
poor that much.
The persona of perhaps...
You're harking back to Indira Gandhi, Garibi Hatao. I haven't heard Garibi Hatao from him.
He's not the Garibi, he's not on the Garibi
Hatao. But I don't
he's more like Janta Bachao.
As much as you are implying.
Right. No, I'm just saying certain forgotten qualities have
I don't think they've been forgotten, Sagarika.
They've not been forgotten.
Look, just 6 months ago, okay, again, perception, as Dipankar said, maybe perception, maybe reality. People voted for Modi for the removal of poverty, for growth, for governance.
And for a humble person.
And for a humble person, the chaiwala, etc. And then, you know, so...
He was out-humbled.
That's a very interesting point. In fact, it takes us to looking ahead and how this victory can be projected for the rest of India. Are there lessons that, in fact, national politics can draw? Let's take a short break at this point on Capital View and come back with lots more with our panelists on the other side. Welcome back to Capital View. A stunning victory for the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. We're asking, what does this victory mean for Delhi and for national politics in general? In the previous segment, we spoke about Delhi and the Aam Aadmi Party. Let's now focus on national politics and what this means for the rest of India. Before we go to the rest of India, I just want to focus a little bit on Modi. Do you think he really has been dented? The invincibility has really been dented, and what has he been getting wrong all this time?
Yeah. And the two are related. So, simple fact is he has been dented, at least dented. So, therefore, that's a minimum. What he's got wrong, you know, and everybody will have a different view, which is absolutely fine. Let me decompose the appeal, not decompose, but separate out the appeal of Modi in terms of economics and in terms of politics. In economics, I happen to think he hasn't put a foot wrong. And we'll see in the budget whether he does put a massive foot wrong or not. But that remains. To date, I think I can substantiate by evidence, by logic, and by reasoning that a lot of what he's done is what people expected him to do, including the poor people, mind you.
But do you think that after this election, the budget is going to be big on giveaways and it's going to be a political budget because he's got Bihar coming up?
I think less so, but that's a separate. But now, what he's got wrong, and clearly he's got this wrong, is social harmony, social, you know, basically love jihad, ghar wapsi, as minister making that statement, that women should have 4 kids, another person, every day somebody crops up from somewhere.
And you believe that
the burning of churches.
And you believe that would have hit the Modi voting class?
I think, look, it certainly has hit the middle and upper voting class.
Was the Obama visit a PR disaster?
I think we should, well, taking off from what Surjit said, in the economic sector, whether he's done something right or wrong, it's still on hold. The jury is out, we don't know. But it is true that nothing spectacular has happened as people expected would happen, and it's probably irrational to think that way. But I think where Modi went wrong was all of the above. plus the fact he spent too much time abroad with all these, you know, big wigs.
He lost the chemistry with the people.
Right,
And
right.
That is not economic policies. It's exactly these things where people resonate. You're doing okay. You know, you're on my side. There were a lot of people who
He's
felt
losing that connect. He's losing that connect. And as a political personality, how do you see him shaping within the BJP?
The one thing that I would want to say, that of what I know of him, he's also been that leader who's never really lost elections. Of those of you who've known him far longer and have tracked his politics far longer, I would want to ask this question, that this electoral loss must not have gone down easily with Mr. Modi.
Right.
What must this moment of loneliness be like? Would this moment be a moment of thought, of concern, of thinking about where he went wrong?
Yeah.
That's
a very interesting, that's a very interesting.
Him.
I just want to, because we need to sort of move along, and I just want to get you back on the budget. Do you think this will be a dilemma for Mr. Modi? Now, do I present a middle class budget that gets in my middle class support, give tough reforms, good, strong signals on economic reform, so I get my middle class support back? Or do I make a pitch for the urban poor, even though they, you know, we don't want to divide people, but and do giveaways.
Do I make a pitch for populism?
Do I make a pitch for populism?
Sonia Gandhi style?
Or do I do reforms?
Or do I do what people expected me to do?
Because after all, I've got Bihar elections coming up in November.
I think precisely because this loss is the first loss in such a long time, precisely because he's lost the entire youth vote, I think more reforms will be forthcoming in the budget than we had originally thought.
So he's going to make defeat into opportunity.
Absolutely. Not only defeat into opportunity to get back to zero. This is, he has to get back his appeal, at least some part of his appeal. If he goes down the populist route, he should just phone up Sonia Gandhi and ask, what happens when you go down that route?
I don't disagree with what Surjit said, because
That's
Modi
rare.
Modi really has very little to lose right now. You know, you might say Bihar this and the other, but you know, they don't really matter that much. If Modi stays true to his course, if he has set a course earlier, if he deviates from it, he'll get it from both sides.
Right.
You know, and on top of that, he has his hotheads in his party. You know, so he doesn't gain by playing the populist card. He should just stick to his course and hold steady and firm.
How do you see this playing out? We're talking about Bihar. Will there be an effect? Will the morale of the JDU be boosted by this? We've already seen the Mamata Banerjee and JDU and all the Janta Parivar throw their weight behind Arvind Kejriwal. So is he going to be the left of centre?
Why else do you think the Bihar political drama, even while Delhi was headlining
on the same day?
Yeah, because for once the Purvanchalis in the city, most of them happening to be Bihar migrants here out for a living, literally distress, forced, push migration out of their homelands, they voted the other party.
On the other hand, can the AAP really work in Bihar? I mean, the AAP model, can it really work in other states, Rajasthan, Gujarat, or is it sort of limited basically to Delhi? So perhaps Mr. Modi has nothing to fear from the AAP in any other state. Perhaps it's only limited to Delhi.
What Modi has to fear is failure.
Right.
So if he fails, then whether it is AAP or whether it's somebody else.
Do you think that the AAP, for example, can go to a Rajasthan or a Gujarat and take the place there of the Congress as a direct opposition to the BJP?
I think, look, let us look at the short history of AAP that we know. They won in Delhi, and if you will, they won 4 seats in Punjab. And one of the disconcerting things about AAP so far is that there's been very little communication, what one reads, and none of you guys ever talk about it, so I'm assuming that is true, between the 4 Lok Sabha AAP members from Punjab and the central leadership in Delhi.
Right.
They have almost been forgotten as if they don't exist.
Right.
So I think, you know, that is worrisome in terms of for the AAP itself.
Right.
I think, look, they are, you know, they won in if you will, ex post reasoning, they won in Punjab because of the Akalis, were bad news, and the Congress was bad news. So, if you will, the BJP was a third player, B team of the Akalis, and the AAP succeeded. In Rajasthan, in Gujarat, in Maharashtra, in
you don't think
Madhya Pradesh,
you don't think that there is that kind of
so.
traction. And I want to explore one theme, which I think is another theme which has been forgotten and has been resurrected, and I want to get all your comments on that, which is the irrelevance of the media. You know, the advertising blitz, the poster blitz, The front page headlines, the kind of PR campaign. Now, all along in our politics, we felt that this is what wins elections. This is what sways the voter. Advertising campaigns, the PR campaigns, the 3D campaigns. Of course, and they did in 2014. This time, it didn't work at all for the BJP. Why is that?
Two things. First, it didn't work now. Second, I think media hasn't worked for the last 10 years. In the olden days, it did work. You had one TV channel back.
But you didn't need the
now
media to defeat Indira Gandhi.
Now you've got the mobile phone, you've got social media, you've got all of this. And there are various ways. Now, all of them are not homogeneous. So I think, people are just a lot more aware. There's a lot more information. And
so you can't win elections just from advertising and advertising campaign?
Absolutely not. It's a waste of time.
You can't do that.
And money.
It's a waste of time and money. So two things are happening. On the one hand, people are using the media really well. As Surjit is saying, social media, WhatsApp, and AAP is very active on social media. It doesn't cost you any money. On the other hand, if you have an advertising blitzkrieg and you have a poster campaign like the BJP did, that doesn't work.
You see, the thing
so
is that the world has changed. The world has changed.
Democratic.
People don't want to be told. People want to participate.
Yeah.
When you advertise, you're telling them what to do. When you're doing WhatsApp, you are participating. It's a community you're creating. And the medium is the message at the end of the day. The new medium has come up.
Right.
And the old one won't work. The old one is top down. This one is horizontal.
Right. Remember, the Congress also spent a lot of money on the Lok Sabha election.
Right.
Top down is a great way of patronage.
Yeah.
You hand out patronage to your friends who are running advertising agencies.
That's a very interesting point, that people want to now consume media as participative,
it's a horizontal
not as
move.
a diktat from the top. But but in 2014, we were all agog with the kind of media that Mr. Modi was bringing to the table.
But he was also doing the horizontal.
All of that. Has that bottomed out? Have people become cynical about that?
Even then, since it was happening on a pan-India scale, we were not looking at the nuances. I was trailing the Gujarat elections in 2012, and we were in Mahua, where there was a formidable opposition to Mr. Modi, and I saw a poster saying Modi's rally, and when I was going, somebody said, no, don't go there. This is the Parde Wali Sabha. And then I realized that people were differentiating between the real Mr. Modi's Sabha and the Parde Wali Sabha.
Okay, at the very end, I just want to get quick comments from you. How does Mr. Modi need to change? If you had to give him one-line advice, what would you tell him?
Rein in deep haircuts to the lunatic fringe.
Rein in the hot heads. Give haircuts.
The fringe. Just cut them
Haircuts.
out. Yeah. I would say if Modi wants to really make a comeback after this, it's not that he's been devastated, but he's got his head back. I think what he needs to do is, of course, give that haircut to lunatic fringe, but at the same time, he has to actually address issues that people are talking about, especially in terms of economic matters.
I would like him action out on the issues for which India's poorest have voted him in.
Right.
They want to see some action on inflation and unemployment. He better perform on these two areas.
Well, thank you very much indeed. It's been a very, very illuminating discussion. As always, as our panelists have pointed out, homo politicus, as Manisha is saying, the political man, the political voter has, as always, given us analysts so much to talk about and so much to think about, and has shown the way forward, in fact, of how she wants politics to move. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, and thanks so much for watching Capital View.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.